You're listening to Rikki and Jimmy on Relationships, the show where we uncover the thoughts and behaviors that are sabotaging your relationship and what you can do about it. Jimmy and I are passionate about sharing the ways that imperfect partners like you and I can shift unhealthy relational dynamics and create closeness. So welcome. Drop your defenses and open your heart, eyes, and ears. Let's learn how to be the best partner we can be together.
All right, welcome back. I'm here with Rikki, who I love talking to. We're going to start over.
We're just going to cut that. We don't have to cut it. We could keep going. Jimmy, I love talking to you too. This podcast truly is a labor of love. And thank you to all the regular listeners. We've got a good one for you guys today.
Yeah, we're going to talk about what you need in order to forgive someone. We're going to talk about all about forgiveness and apologies and what makes a good apology and how you can kind of take that and actually forgive someone, because it's kind of a two-step process. Sometimes even if you have a good apology, you're still really struggling to forgive people. So I think it's something that needs to be talked about more. And I think this can help a lot of people, because we both know that now that you're married, we both know that in a long-term relationship, you kind of have to have a culture of forgiveness. That doesn't excuse large betrayals, but I'm just saying in general, we know that we can't just hold grudges and stuff against each other all the time and expect us to feel connected. So totally. There is an element where we have to forgive each other, but there's a lot of caveats and a lot of nuance to that. So we're going to get into that.
Yeah. I was just telling Jimmy too, for everybody, that I am pretty bad at apologizing. It's not something I love to admit, but it's probably good for me to learn that about myself and work on it. So the research that I did for this episode has been really good for me. For the remainder of the episode, I'll be playing the part of the bad apologizer, I guess, because I'm so good at that.
Oh, I think we all need to learn something. There's something we can all get better at, especially when it comes to apologizing.
Totally.
For anyone watching this, wondering why I'm just wearing a t-shirt and I didn't dress up for this. We just got back from Tennessee. I got to visit Pigeon Forge in Gatlinburg for the first time. So
fun. Oh, beautiful.
I'm just trying to represent, I got a shirt along the way. So that's all.
I think most of the listeners are audio, so I don't think we have to worry about that too much. We literally get dressed up and put ourselves together for nothing, Jimmy. They're just listening. Yeah, that's okay. Not watching. So
perfect. All right. So where should we start? We should probably just start with what makes a good apology. That's pretty helpful information.
Yeah. Okay, great. And I have prepared the 6 elements of a good apology. I've also got some sentence examples, because I think people learn better that way. So we'll just dive right in. The very first thing, not a big shocker here, is an expression of regret. So that's going to sound like, I feel terrible about XYZ, and I want you to know that I'm truly sorry. That's probably a good place to start, because it's the base level. And without any of the future things that we're going to talk about, those words mean absolutely nothing. But it's a great place to start. Somebody needs to hear that you're truly sorry about something. I know that's just lip service, but it's a good thing to do in the beginning. Jimmy, I'm floundering. Help me out here. What do you think about that expression?
I love that you said that we have to remember that our words are, at this stage, it's just lip service. Totally. That's really important. Yeah, it's really important to remember, although it's still really helpful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's still really helpful to just start out with actual remorse.
Yes.
So, which is easier said than done, but it's very, very important.
For sure. Yeah. So, a little helpful tip too, from me to you guys: don't say this when you're still upset about the situation or you're not actually sorry, because like a dog, they're going to smell that on you. They're going to be able to tell that you're not actually sorry. And that's going to do more damage than anything. So I wait to bust those words out until I'm actually feeling that remorse. And I want to let my partner know, hey, I am sorry for what happened.
I love that. Yeah. And let's just remember that we should want to get to that point. Let's remember that we love each other. And if your partner who loves you says hey, something you did hurt me, we should be wanting to get to genuine remorse. It's okay. Yes. It's okay if you don't really know why this is a big deal. It's okay if you don't see it as a big deal, but if your partner brought it up, especially on this channel, because we teach that you should not be just constantly criticizing your partner for every little thing. So if they're bringing something up, that means that this is important because so we should be moving towards, I want to understand you. I'm sure that we'll get to all that in Rikki's points.
Totally. Another aside, there'll be lots of asides in this episode, is that sometimes the thing that I did that I need to apologize for, I'm not sorry about the thing, right? Like I like Absolutely. It made sense to me why I did it. And sometimes the thing that I'm sorry about is causing my partner pain. So even if I'm not sorry about the way that I organized the fridge or whatever it is that we're arguing about, I'm usually genuinely sorry for hurting my partner's feelings. So I can tap into that when I'm making my apology.
Yeah. Which is funny. We'll get to this in a second because I have a bunch of. I just made a video recently about 10 ways to ruin your apologies.
I love that one.
I pulled some of those. I pulled some of those up. But one of the most famous ones is "I'm sorry that you feel that way." And so what you just described is a genuine, like some people would say, "But I really am sorry that they feel hurt." So I'm not going to go deep into it. It really is just all in the way that you say it. Listen.
Yes.
Listen to the difference here.
Oh, do you have it? Okay.
Well, I'm going to try to tap into it.
Okay. I've got an example too.
Well, I'm sorry that you feel that way. Versus,
gross.
I really am sorry that you feel like that.
Yeah, that's much better. Or I've got, here's my go-to. I never want to hurt you. I never want to cause you pain. That's where he likes that one. So I use that one a lot.
Yeah. That's such a good reminder.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's keep going then. So the next step, acknowledgement of what you did wrong, which is a good place to go after the I'm sorry. I'm genuinely sorry that I blah, 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 whatever you did. Right. It shows it shows your partner or the person that you're apologizing to that you are aware of what went wrong. Because a lot of times people just throw an I'm sorry out. Like my son will do this a lot. He'll apologize because he knows he's in trouble, but he doesn't actually know what he did wrong. And I'm like, oh, that doesn't make me feel any better.
Right. Yeah. Super, super important. So the first steps are really focused around like listening to what your partner is actually talking about. And then you actually have to understand what they're upset about so that even if you are genuinely sorry, you can articulate that and summarize that. And that really helps them feel like, okay, they heard me. But you can't do any of that if you have no idea what you're apologizing for because you didn't pay attention or you didn't care enough to listen.
Yeah. This part's a little tougher, I think. A good piece of a good apology would be giving your partner some understanding of what was happening in your head or why. You got to be really careful with this one because this is where, for me, my defensiveness comes out, right? Like I did this thing because of this, which he hates, and that totally negates my apology.
Right.
It kind of goes better if I'll say like, here's what I was thinking when this happened. So it kind of just gives him a window into why, because a lot of times when my partner's upset at me, I think he thinks that I'm trying to make his life hard, and that's why he's upset. So if I can explain to him, well, here's what I was thinking when this happened, when this went down. It's not, I did this because it's here's what was going on in my head, just for your information so that you know, and we can tackle this better together.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not a coach or a counselor, but if I was, I would want to encourage people. So I think it's really important that step is articulated, but the timing really matters of it. And if your partner's upset, it will always come across as you being defensive, you making excuses, you justifying. So I would encourage the partner who brought up the concern or complaint, if you feel like your partner's listening to you and you feel like they're validating and empathizing and going through the steps that we're going to talk about in just a second, I would ask them to say, hey, I don't want you to feel like I'm pinning you as the bad guy or bad girl. Like, tell me what was going on. And then allow them to talk about their side of it, not from a making excuses side, just from a, well, here's what was going on for me. But it's really important that we categorize those so that it's not, you're not just jumping in and saying, well, hold on, let me tell my side of the story before you've even actually understood the other person's side of the story. So that's my
that's such a good addition, Jimmy. I think I'm gonna share that one with my partner Chris and let him know, like, hey, because that's one of the things that gets in the way of my apologies, is that defensiveness, trying to explain myself. Perhaps in the future, when he and I resolve arguments, I can request that he asks that more often. Like, it would really help me with my good apologies if you could ask me what was going on in your head when that happened. And I think that'll make things a lot better in this household anyway, hopefully for the listeners too.
I love that, because we have to remember that there's an underlying goal here. Like, everybody wants to be heard, everybody wants to be understood, nobody wants to feel attacked or criticized. So that can really help us remember the goal. The goal is reconnection. The goal is repair. And asking your partner, like, hey, just tell me about, especially after they've been gracious and listened and validated and stuff like that. There's nothing wrong with saying, like, I want to hear your side of this too. Like, you're not in trouble. I'm not attacking you. Like, tell me what was going on. And that's such a loving thing to do, so that both people feel like, oh, okay, like they care about my feelings, or they care about my perspective as well.
Totally. If your partner is incredibly defensive like me, I just melt when Chris does ask, what was going on in your head? Because then I know, okay, I'm not on trial. This isn't something for me to be terrified of. He actually cares why I did the thing, and he realizes, maybe he may not know why I did it, but he knows it's not to ruin his life.
Yeah, I love it. Are we on 3?
This is the 4th one.
Okay.
The next quality that you need to put into your good apology is owning it and making a plan for how you'll handle it next time. Owning it for us folks full of shame and defensiveness is so hard. That's owning it is really like, that's where you set aside all the reasons that why you did it, or the justifications, and you just, hey, that is something that I did. I'm not proud of it. But you know what? Here's what I'm going to change so that it doesn't keep happening. That's not going to be easy to say. I even just throwing that example out, I can already feel my own shame building, and I haven't done anything wrong. It's hard. Yeah.
It's so hard. Yeah. So acknowledge and then take accountability. That doesn't mean apologize for things that you didn't do. It doesn't mean agree with accusations. It simply means take accountability for what you could have done better. Matthias has a really good take where he reminds me often. He's like, talk about, and I think you might have just said this, talk about what should have happened, especially if you agree with that. Like, you know what? Like, I didn't communicate that. Like, I should have communicated that better, or I should have done this better. And that's still taking accountability. So because you recognize that, like, the way that I handled that, I can totally understand how that left you feeling just kind of alone or ignored or neglected. That makes sense. And totally. Here's what should have happened. And then I loved the part that you just said about making a plan. That's something that we all miss, but holy moly, if you want to, like, really make your partner feel like you get it and you care, talking about a plan, it's great.
Yeah. I want to add too that sometimes you don't know what you should have done instead, Very true. Sometimes the apologizer isn't, I can't say I should have done this because I have no idea what they want. So in that case, you can ask, hey, Absolutely. what could I do different in the future that you would feel good about? Or how should this have gone in your mind? What do you see? How can I make that vision a reality for us?
I love that.
Mm-hmm. All right. And then these last 2 are not necessarily needed for every apology situation. They're kind of like bonuses. So if needed, reparations, like, how can I make it up to you? Sometimes when you screw up, you actually need to go above and beyond to show your partner, kind of a little token or something that you can do to really make them feel special, because sometimes we've really hurt them and we need to make it up to them. Not always. Sometimes the transgressions are small and it's just, I screwed up. What do we do different? But sometimes it's, I screwed up, and how can I soothe your emotions? How can I make you feel better about this? Because the hurt is deep on this one. I'm sure you've got a lot more to say about this one, Jimmy.
No, this one's tricky. So I don't want to open up. No. I don't want to open up that can of worms. Okay. If you feel like, I wouldn't think of it as from the standpoint of like, you need to do these things to make it up to me. It's just more like, it kind of goes along with the plan. Like, you know what would really help me feel like you were on board with this is if you initiated, I don't know, I'm trying to think of like the situation where maybe you ignored. Yeah.
Well, here, it could be small too. I know our minds immediately go to some giant transgression, but it could be small too. My partner's way bigger than I am. So sometimes accidentally he'll like step on my foot. Right. And it really hurts if that happens because he outweighs me by quite a bit. So he'll step on my foot hurts. I'm kind of mad. Even if he did all those things, oh my gosh, I'm so genuinely sorry I stepped on your foot. That my foot's way bigger than yours. That must have hurt. I was kind of tripping around it, right? I'm going through the steps. I want a hug. You know what I mean? Like my foot hurts. Like I need reparations. Like he might need to go a little bit above and beyond simply because I'm in a lot of pain, not because he's so awful for stepping on my foot. It was clearly an accident, but sometimes reparations can just be that little extra, like a hug, like a little smooch, like, that. Hey, I just a little extra to show them that you really, really don't want to cause them pain and you want to give them pleasure instead. Right?
Yeah, I love that. I definitely think of that as just like being part of the repair process. Like we should want to know what they need for this to feel like, of course they might not feel 100% good after this, but like, what do you need to feel like I am really sorry. And I guess, and physical touch is usually a great place to start.
I love that one. I guess I call it a bonus because other times we'll be in the kitchen and he'll just like bump into me, maybe knock a pepper out of my hand while I'm taking it to the cutting board. And that's like, I don't need a hug after that. Like, just give me like, oh, sorry, I'm going to watch where I'm going next time. That's it. Yeah. It's, I think every single one of these examples there's a lot of nuance to all of this, which is good, right? Like you don't need to go through every single thing every single time, but these are True. Tools to have in your pocket that you can pull out depending on the situation and your partner and how both people are feeling.
Yeah. Tell me the last one.
The last one is, if needed, a request for forgiveness. I think that would probably go for like one of the bigger transgressions too, but sometimes it really means a lot to your partner if you actually ask for their forgiveness. You don't just assume that they've forgiven you. You check and you see, are we good here? Is everything, how are you feeling about this? Are you all right? As I said before, like bumping into me in the kitchen and making me drop the pepper doesn't require for him to ask for my forgiveness. Even stepping on my foot, I know that that's an accident. I don't care. That's fine. He doesn't have to do that. But I don't know, if he was out super late and he didn't text and I was really worried, that might be a situation where it would feel really good if he was like, how are you feeling about this? I want to know that you've forgiven me for this. That would feel amazing. Those bigger transgressions, they call for that sometimes.
Yeah. Or I want to know what would be needed for you to forgive me for this. Like,
Yep.
I mean, it's just something that we should want. We should want to know. Yeah. Should I go into what else did you have?
Please do. That's it. Those are my 6 steps.
I loved those. Let me talk about what's not an apology real quick. And
Lovely.
Then we'll go into,
Let's do it.
Then we'll elaborate more on what is.
I'm preparing myself to feel very attacked, by the way. Just putting my armor on right now.
I don't think you're guilty of these.
No. Right. Go ahead.
There's probably a lot of these examples. Unfortunately, this was just from the ones that I wrote down. These are kind of like you're saying the words "I'm sorry," but you're not really conveying everything that Rikki and I just talked about. So, I'm sorry, but you do the same thing to me. So, just try to keep butts out of your apology. If you've seen my reel, then you know that's a joke.
Is this where you slapped your butt, right? I saw it. It was a good one.
Don't negate your apology with blame. So I'm sorry, but I wouldn't have done that if you would have just blamed.
Oh, that one's awful. Yeah.
Don't say anything about them being too sensitive. Like, oh geez, I'm sorry. I didn't know you got offended so easily.
Yeah.
Do not shame spiral. This is a big one. You're like, oh, I guess I'm such a terrible partner. I'm such a terrible mother.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's stop
Go
right
ahead.
there. Cause that was me, in the past, right? If I had got caught doing something wrong, or I was in trouble, I hurt my partner's feelings. He'd better prepare himself for a 1 hour diatribe on why I'm the worst person in the whole world. I'm so
Wow.
glad I don't do that anymore, but I
Yeah.
would just explode like a volcano about all the reasons why I'm
Right.
terrible. And I just, spoiler alert, that never led anywhere good ever,
No.
ever. I
Do
don't
you
do
guys
it
hear
anymore.
do you know how courageous it is for Rikki to admit the things that she did in the past that were not healthy? Like, do we
Thanks,
all
Jimmy.
fully appreciate that? Because I certainly appreciate that.
Oh,
This is a
thanks.
place where we want to be, like, we're all about accountability here, and
Yeah.
transparency and vulnerability of, like, hey, this is where I've screwed up in the past. We are not holding back here. We don't care about
No.
our ego or
How
anything
we
like that.
look.
Like, oh my gosh, we're all just here because you know what we know about you. Anyone that's listening to this, we know that you've messed up. We
Yeah.
know you might not have messed up in this area, but we'll eventually get to an area where
We'll
you have
get there.
colossally messed up. And so that's why we're okay with sharing our, like, hey, we've royally messed up in this
Yeah.
area. Because we know that we're all human, so there's no reason to pretend or hide.
Totally.
So
And
yeah,
here's
we've all
something
said
helpful
one of
too.
these, unfortunately.
We absolutely have. And I want to say, I'm not looking back on that girl throwing herself on the ground and throwing a fit about what a terrible partner she is. I'm not looking back, her being me, for those who aren't following along there. I'm not
Yeah.
looking back on my old self and going, oh, I was so terrible. I was awful. That's the only tool I had, what's that quote? When you're a hammer,
When you know
everything's
better,
a
do
nail,
better. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the only tool I had. So I thought, all right, I'm being accused of something. Time to pile more shame and guilt on top. That way, maybe my partner won't feel bad for accusing me of it and realize that I'm actually the sorriest person on the planet. That I'm not looking back at that girl going, man, she was terrible. I'm looking back going, she didn't have very many tools. And that was an unfortunate one.
Right.
And I think
Yeah.
that's another thing that helps me admit it too. I don't hate my old self who did all this stuff wrong. I'm just like, that was a version of me that didn't have any tools, and you're listening to the new version right now.
Yep. I love that because we're all
Okay.
on a healing journey together.
Totally.
This is another shame spiral. Sorry, I guess I can't do anything right. We don't say these to, like, make fun of you. We don't say these. We say these because, like Rikki said, sometimes we just don't have any other tools. And what we need to do in those moments, well, we might not be able to do it in those moments. But if you're listening to this and you're like, I say that. I say, like, I guess I can't do anything right.
Yeah.
We just want you to be introspective on, like, one, why you might say that. You know what I mean? Like, why would you immediately turn around and make it about you? Why would your shame get activated here? It's because, well, one, you feel like if I admitted to something that I messed up as, like, maybe that means I'm a bad partner, or maybe like it's all a defensive coping mechanism of us. We just don't want to be seen as the bad person. We don't want to be seen. So that's why when somebody says, like, hey, you did this wrong, we kind of equate behavior with, like, identity. Like, oh, I did something
yeah.
wrong, therefore I am a bad partner, when that might not be what they're saying at all. I mean, I'm not saying that they came to you in the best way possible, because they probably didn't. But the point is like, we want to be careful that we're owning our own triggers. If somebody comes to you and they're like, hey, you hurt my feelings when you did this, and we're like, you don't even appreciate all the things I do for you. Well, hold on. Like, that's a very different reaction than the person that I love just came to me and said that my words hurt them in some way. So we have to be very careful about that, because these types of things create the arguments. Like Rikki and I do, we talk about conflict all the time. These types of things, like not being able to come to your partner and vulnerably and respectfully talk about how they hurt you, and you apologize and repair and empathize and all that stuff, like that is what creates so much of the disconnection that we're trying to prevent, or, so much of the disconnection that causes just the massive blow-ups and the fights and ultimately the divorce, or whatever the case may be, the breakup. So,
Sure.
So just be curious about these. If you hear yourself in these, don't shame spiral. Just get curious.
Right.
And then learn to do something different, like is what we're talking about here.
Totally. I think we're having, this may be one of our more interrupting episodes, folks.
This doesn't seem so bad yet.
Oh, you don't think so? Okay, good. All right,
No, it's
good.
fine.
And I think our longtime listeners don't care, so maybe I shouldn't worry about that so much.
Sorry if you're.
Anyway, I apologize for interrupting you there, Jimmy. I'm going to take a pause and make sure you're done before I jump in. I wanted to, yeah?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So I wanted to let everybody know too, the one of the dangers of the shame spiral is that it turns it back. It turns the focus back to you and away from what they're actually upset about. So as the partner who's bringing something up, having your partner throw their hands up in the air and go, I guess I just can't do anything right. That tells your partner who's upset about something that you don't really care about what they're upset about at all. All you care about is how you feel right now and in this moment. That's what I went through anyway when I was the shame spiraling partner. And it really took a lot of I don't know, it took a lot of guts and a lot of effort for me to notice when I'm having those feelings and keep my mouth shut. Just listen to what my partner was telling me instead of making it all about me and the shame that I was feeling in that moment.
That was well said.
Thanks.
Getting back to the list. So don't be vague. Sorry for whatever I did.
Gross. That's a bad
That
one.
doesn't help at all. Focus on your, don't focus on your intent and not your impact. So so often we'll be like, I didn't intend to hurt you. Like,
Right.
that doesn't change.
Here's what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
I hurt you, but but my intentions were good. Doesn't matter if your intentions were good if you caused them pain.
Right. The next one is to just say, like, can't we just put this in the past? Especially if you haven't gone through the steps that we just kind of outlined in the very beginning of the episode. Putting things in the past doesn't work if there's been no actual curiosity, understanding, empathy, repair.
Yeah,
so.
that question also, it's analogous to, hey babe, can we sweep this under the rug? It's still there under the rug. They're not going to move past it or forgive you for it. And just moving on is sweeping it under the rug. And then you've got a big lump that everybody can see underneath the rug.
Yep. The next one is, I'm sorry, but you're making way too big a deal about this. So
that one's
also not an apology. These are all just not apologies, even though you might say the words, I'm sorry. The next one is just saying, you talked about this one, like saying, I'm sorry really quick. Like, okay, I'm sorry. When you don't actually know what you're even apologizing for, you don't understand how your words or actions impacted them. That's a no-go. And then the last one we've already talked about. Well, I'm sorry that you feel that way. That is, those are not going to be helpful, and they're only going to be hurtful. So those don't lead to repair.
No. And they can ruin the steps that you did before. By the way, I think you could go through all of the 6 things that we talked about that are really great. Your partner's feeling great. You're feeling great. You're sitting there watching TV after the argument, snuggling, and you're like, yeah, you really are a little too sensitive about that stuff, though. And that just take all the good things and the good feelings and let's just sweep them off the table because we're starting over at the beginning of the apology.
You are starting over. I promise you, you will. Oh my gosh. I've put my foot in my mouth a couple of times. Yeah. And you will only do that a couple of times before you're like, that was so dumb. I'm not. Why did I, like, we were already past it. Why did I bring this up in such a, why did I act like that? Oh my gosh. And then you're right back in it and you're like, I am a moron. So I like talking about it from the standpoint of what does the receiver, the recipient need to do. I get that. Like, obviously we want the person who brings this up to do it in a respectful and vulnerable way. We've made countless episodes on that. Anybody that's listened to our episodes knows that we're all about the soft startup. We're all about taking accountability taking responsibility for your own feelings and not saying you made me so angry and this is all the things that you need to do. And you need, we're all about being vulnerable and just talking about, hey, when this happened, this is how I'm feeling about it. This is the story that I'm telling myself of what, all that stuff. And then doing all the things that we just talked about on how to actually, show up and listen to your partner. But that doesn't answer the question. That's not the full picture on what you need to actually forgive someone, because I think it's really important to talk about what forgiveness is and what forgiveness isn't. We're not saying forgiveness, like forgive and forget. Like if somebody has hurt you and you're just like, I'm just going to forgive and forget, because like maybe you don't have a partner who will actually do these steps with you. Maybe you don't have a partner who's interested in listening and repairing. And so you're like, I don't want to hold this resentment, so I'm just going to forgive them. I understand that like sentiment, but if they don't take any accountability for the ways that they've hurt you, and if you don't feel safe to bring up your hurt, you can forgive them. You can try, but if that thing is just going to continue repeating, and if there's no real repair in that relationship, I'm just telling you that forgiveness isn't really what you need here. Like you need something more. So
Jimmy, I'm glad you said that. I just recalled a conversation I just had with my mom, who she just realized. She said, I thought I was over something, but I noticed myself bringing it up all the time. I'm like, when we're in, I thought that I had forgiven this person, but every time I see them, I feel like I have to bring up the thing again. So it must, she's like, I think I should use that as a signal to myself that I have not forgiven them. So that might be a good clue. If you keep bringing it up, it keeps popping up between you. Forgiveness isn't happening, right?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I have a couple different takes on that, and I don't know which one. I don't know which way we should go with that, but I'll make it quick. Okay. So when someone has hurt you, or when you perceive someone to hurt you, and even if they've done all the steps, even if they've apologized and whatever, but you kind of just feel like you need to keep bringing it up. It could be because you haven't actually forgiven them, and a deeper conversation needs to be had about it. It could also be that you have forgiven them, but that pain is still in you. And I don't want you to confuse the fact that just because pain is still in you, that means that you haven't forgiven someone, because that pain might still be there. And you might have forgiven them. Both can be true.
Oh, that's really wise. Yeah, good call. Thank you for saying that. And you know what? I'm going to tell my mom about that too. You're right. The presence of lingering pain doesn't necessarily mean that you haven't done all the steps of forgiveness and that you, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It's really important. But yeah, I mean, when we talk about forgiveness, we're certainly not talking about just excusing someone's poor behavior and just letting it go. Not to mention the fact that we don't have enough time to get into like people's deeper questions, like how do I forgive someone after an affair? Like how do I forgive? Those are great questions. We did an episode on betrayal 3 or 4 episodes ago. I would listen to that one as well. But this is also something, if you're in a deep betrayal situation, of course forgiveness plays a role at a certain point. Sure. And even if they're doing the things that they're supposed to be doing, I can completely empathize and understand with the fact that you're like, yeah, but I don't want to forgive them, or I have forgiven them, but that doesn't mean I want them in my life anymore. And that those two things can completely coincide. So forgiveness doesn't always mean reconciliation. And that's and we find that a lot with parents, where it's like people that are estranged from their parents and they have bad relation, they have forgiven their parents because they're just like, because at the end of the day, they've recognized that forgiveness was for them. Like they were holding on to bitterness and resentment towards this person who might not even be in their life anymore. Right. God forbid, I hate that those situations exist, but there's countless of them where maybe it was your dad who just like abandoned the family and you like have this hatred for him. And he kind of has this like, I'm not going to say he has control over your heart, but he has this like place in your heart where you're so angry with him all the time, or you have this hatred, but he's not even around. I mean, and so he has this effect on us. And so sometimes we have to go through that process of forgiveness simply to let go of that emotional weight that we have where we're just so angry with somebody, or we're so, I mean, it makes sense that we're always kind of just like upset about it, but does that make sense? Do you know what I mean? Like
totally
sometimes we have to let go of that sometimes, because we realize that I'm not going to let this person have all this control over me that isn't even involved in my life.
Right, right. In my own life, that in my own head, even that sounds like me saying, I think of examples from my life here. I understand why they did the thing that they did. That understanding is something that helps me not feel so much anger. I understand why they did the thing that they did. However, I am, that understanding and forgiveness does not mean that I want to continue having them in my life. That's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's not something that I love thinking about. That it's still very painful to think about people or situations that you don't entertain anymore because it's better for you. Yeah, and it does still hurt a little bit. So
Yeah.
I'm really glad that you brought that one up. I am. To throw it completely back to my mom's situation. I know that her lingering pain was because she hadn't let go or forgiven, because it was somebody who just said, "I'm sorry," and moved on. That's it. It was just the lip service, "I'm sorry." And so for her to keep bringing it back up. But
Yeah.
thanks for bringing it back to that deeper one. If you have a giant transgression, Jimmy's right. Our betrayal episode was pretty great. I'm not sure. Maybe we could link it in the description on this one.
Yeah. Yeah.
For anybody looking.
That's definitely something where we can't kind of we can't answer all those questions for you. That's like something that you need to be talking. Those are multiple different sessions with a counselor, and they'll help you to walk through that process of like, what would forgiveness actually look like? But one of the steps that I want to talk about is from the person who needs, who's like, they want to forgive, like if you, if you and I had a big thing and like, I wanted to forgive you, even if you said, "I'm sorry," and you actually tried to understand, I think it's really important. I don't think we talk about it enough, but like, I would need to get in touch with my own pain. Like so often we want to forgive almost from a place of like, I just want to move on. And I kind of touched on this earlier, where sometimes we just want to move on, and sometimes but the real work is like connecting with our own pain and ourself. And because that's kind of what's necessary. Like, you can't really forgive them if you don't know why they hurt you, and if you don't know how it affected you. Because there's a wound there. Like, that's what you're searching for. You're searching for like, hey, can we close this together? And and if you
Jimmy,
if you can't identify that wound, it gets really tricky.
Yeah, let's keep following this imaginary scenario where I've hurt you big time in some way also. I would really love it also if you would, after some thought, tell me what you need me to do right? Like, I can ask all day long, but the person who's been hurt, if you can make a request to the person who's hurt you, somebody who's open to it, in our imaginary scenario, I would love it if you would request something that I could do. An example from my own life too. I'm sure I've talked about this in past episodes. I was always late everywhere. I still am. I struggle with being late to places for sure. And my best friend, he's incredibly punctual. And so one day, out of the blue, he told me, "Hey, Rikki, I was thinking about it, and it really hurts that you're late all the time to our get-togethers. Like, that hurts me. And I was wondering if you could make a point to maybe be like 10 minutes early to something. Like, that would really help our friendship out, because I was really hurting about that." And I was so glad that he came to me with that request, because I didn't even know that I can't say I didn't know that I didn't know that I had not done anything wrong. Us chronically late folks know that it affects people around us, but I didn't know that it affected him so much. So having him make that request out of the blue, that must have been so hard for him too. I was really happy that he did. So sometimes if you've got a partner or a friend who's willing to work with you, it's great to be able to request what you need for things to get better.
That was like a really great example of the reparations that you were talking about. Like, hey, can you meet 10 minutes early from now on?
Yeah.
And you're like, okay. Like, that's kind of like him. That's kind of you making it up to him. Let me make it up to you.
Yeah, totally. Right. Going above and beyond to show him that I do respect his time, and our friendship is important to me. So here's this little, he requested an extra thing, and I was happy to give it. So
I love that. So going back to if you're the person who needs forgiveness, like we don't think about how much of an inside job that is. Like if somebody hurt you, it's wonderful if they seek to understand your pain. It's wonderful if they are curious and they want to listen and they want to repair this thing. But what we don't really talk about enough is that like it's still oftentimes really hard to forgive, because true forgiveness is not saying that you're forgetting what they did, but you are intentionally choosing from a place of wisdom, not necessarily just like flippantly, like we've talked about. You need to understand how they hurt you. You need to understand what you need to move on. But once you know that and you've communicated it and yada yada, you've gone through all the steps that we've talked about. It's like it's intentionally choosing. I'm not gonna hold this over your head anymore, and that's a big deal. That's a big deal.
I can definitely think of situations in my own life where people who've hurt me, there's not going to be an apology and there's not going to be reparations or repair. Sometimes people hurt us and it's not possible for them, or they're unwilling to apologize and repair. And in that way, like Jimmy was just saying, sometimes forgiveness really is an inside job, and that is huge work for sure. But it does mean, I think to those folks who've hurt me, who there will be no apology coming, not holding it over their head also means not holding it over my own head. You know, the forgiveness that I've given those folks means that I'm not laying awake at night still wondering, why aren't they forgiving? Why aren't they asking for my forgiveness? You know, and choosing to forgive means that I'm not holding it over anyone's head. It's a thing that has happened. I feel like I understand it well enough. And then the only thing that's left for me to do is find and recognize that little ball of pain that I have and comfort it myself.
Yeah.
You know?
I love that, because there are plenty of people, and like, I know I'm kind of like niching down a lot, but there's a lot of people that I've talked to where they're like, hey, you know, like things have happened. We're not even talking about large betrayals. We're just talking about like disagreements that we are, you know, conflicts that we all get into. But they're like, my partner, like, they bring them back up all the time. Like they hold on to these grudges, and they'll bring them up during arguments, and they'll use them. They'll kind of like slap me with them, you know, when we're in the middle of a conflict. They'll bring it up from 6 months ago. Like, well, yeah, but you remember you do this, or you always do that, or whatever the case may be. And I guess the point I'm trying to make is that that doesn't lead anywhere good in your relationship. Like, I don't know if that type of person is even listening to this, but there's probably people that are listening that might have partners like that or friends like that, where they're like, this person doesn't have an interest in forgiving me. Like, they'd rather hold on to the grudges. They'd rather just, you know, blame me for things when things get tough. So I guess what I'm saying is that in a healthy relationship, we should both be working towards forgiveness. And that doesn't mean excluding any of the steps that we've talked about here. I'm just saying that we really should be keeping short accounts in the relationship. We should not be holding grudges over each other's head. And if that's happening, especially if you're like, I'm open to doing all the things that you've just talked about. I mean, I'm totally open to that, but they're not interested in forgiveness. That's something that happens often, and you should be looking to seek counselor or whatever the case may be. But, you know.
Yeah, I'm smiling, Jimmy, because you've just touched on another thing that I was going to bring up in this episode that my partner brought to my attention, that I am a grudge holder. and sometimes when we get in arguments, it feels really good, weirdly good to hold on to how mad I am at him for something, or how I feel like a victim, or, you know. And he came to me one day, our longtime listeners will remember this story. He came to me and he said, hey, it would really be nice if sometimes you were the one who initiated repair. And I didn't even realize that it was literally always him. See, I thought in my mind, he's always initiating repair because he's always wrong. Right. I'm always right about, which is totally not how it goes in reality. But I said, okay, I'm going to make a note of trying to notice that. And I will, you know, I'll try to initiate repair. I said that. And of course, I didn't. The very next fight, I held onto my
Sure.
grudge. I'm sitting angrily typing at my computer, and he comes in and, he comes in all sorry. And he's like, "Hey, let's talk about what happened." And we talked about what happened, and it was great. And at the end of that, he gives me a big hug and he whispers, "I won." And I was like, what did you win? And he's like, "I apologized first." And I was like, what? This is a contest now? And this is so much fun because the very next fight that we got in, I'm sitting angrily typing because that's what I do after arguments. I pretend to work, right? And
Yeah.
and suddenly I felt like, okay, never mind. I'm feeling way better about this. Okay, my faculties are returning, and I thought, I'm gonna go win. I'm gonna go. So I walk out and I give him a big hug from behind because he's still mad. He's angrily sitting at his desk too. And I give him a big hug and I was like, "I'm so sorry about what happened." And he was like, "Oh, thanks." And I go, "And by the way, I won." So
I
now
love that.
now it's like, it's a contest between us. Like the first person to apologize wins. And that really diffuses those little dumb arguments that couples, especially married couples, get in constantly all the time.
I love that so much. Yes, because we're so interested in winning the argument, but
Yeah.
instead to frame it as winning as whoever apologizes first. I love that.
Yeah, that's the winner. And I just love it. It's really brought the intensity and level of our fights down massively, making it kind
Yeah,
of a contest for us.
I love that. Should we answer some questions what do you think questions would come up? Like my first question that I would assume people would be thinking was like, well, should I forgive them or not? Obviously,
Yeah, that's a big question.
yeah,
Should I forgive them? That depends on so many things.
it does.
That's not a black and white answer. I guess we could probably think of some guidelines or pointers that would help you answer that question. Should I forgive them? Are they genuinely sorry? Can you tell that there's remorse from them? Also, do you or they or both of you have a plan for doing things differently in the future? Because I wouldn't recommend forgiving somebody if there's no plan for something different. Maybe
I love that.
also, I don't know. Can you think of a third reason why somebody should or shouldn't forgive someone?
No, I think you were on fire. I interrupted you. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
okay. No, that's all
You
right.
were,
That's it. I just ran out of steam. Those are probably two good ones to ask yourself. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it
How
obviously
about
depends on the size of the betrayal, of course. I mean,
totally?
we get that,
Totally.
but
Here's a
yeah, I mean, I
listener
think
question that I'll just
yeah.
pull out of the ether and throw at you, I guess. Are there some things, Jimmy, that you think are too big to forgive?
Oh yeah. I
Now
mean,
I'm getting philosophical on us.
yeah, I love that question. It's not that they're too big to forgive. This kind of goes back to forgiveness versus like forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. You can forgive someone and still set healthy boundaries around them,
Yeah.
like as you should. It makes complete sense. So it's not that there's like an unforgivable.
Hmm.
You do not have to forgive anyone. Like there's no the only thing that I was saying about like when we should forgive someone is if it feels like they have like power over us and they have no
Mm.
interest. Like think about someone, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to, like a narcissistic parent or something who is like
Hmm.
just straight up mean to you and neglectful and all that stuff, but they have this power over you, but they have no interest in taking accountability and they have no interest in that situation. It's like, some people would say, don't forgive them. They don't deserve your forgiveness. Don't ever think about them again. But that's part of the problem because you do think about them and they do have this power.
Right.
So like, even if you're not going to be involved in that person's life, which is completely your right and probably a good idea depending on their behavior, I just have this belief that like we should forgive them, not excusing what they did, not justifying what they did, and with no plans on reconciliation. They're just like, we just forgive them for us. Like I
Yeah.
forgive you. I'm not allowing this. I'm not letting the hurt that you caused me to continue to eat away at me forever. I'm forgiving you. I'm letting go of that. And it's just forgiveness might get a negative connotation, but you would agree that we should not let that rule our lives or in any sense. So it's almost just a releasing. It's almost like, who said this? I don't know if it was, but I'm giving it back to you. You gave me all this hurt and stuff. I'm giving it back to you. It's almost the same thing as forgiveness. I'm releasing myself from the power of the hurt that it caused. And so it's a fascinating topic. But
yeah, there's a quote I love. I'm going to get this wrong, and then I'm going to be so upset.
We'll
later,
put it in the show notes.
Yeah, right. I know the correct version of this quote, but it went something like, resentment is preparing a cup of poison for your enemy and then drinking it yourself. And
Absolutely.
I think about that a lot when I'm sitting around stewing and enjoying those angry feelings towards someone else. That doesn't hurt them at all. It really doesn't. But what it does do is it steals some joy and light from me. So I just sit and I drink my poison cup and I think that I'm getting back at them or protecting myself somehow. But really, it just feels awful for myself.
Yeah. The other question that I was thinking is like, should I forgive them if they're like never going to take accountability? Well, those are different. Yeah. So there's of course different situations. If we're talking about large betrayals, like we can still go through what I just said applies, where it's like sometimes we choose to forgive and still set healthy boundaries. Nothing wrong with that. Yeah. Or sometimes we choose, I'm not forgiving, whatever. Other times when it comes to, you have to decide how much of this is this relationship important enough for me to forgive them and move on, even though they do not have any interest in it.
Sorry, there I had a cough.
Oh no,
we're coming up toward the end too. I guess I wanted to say, I think there's been a lot of things in my own partnership where I've recognized, I'm upset about something, a way that he does something or a thing that he says. Repair is not going to happen and change is not going to happen. There are things about my partner that I just have to accept are parts of him that are really annoying or hurtful to me. That happens. I mean, people are so complex. Nobody's going to find somebody who just feels good to them all the time. So
right.
I take those things that he says and does that are really, I don't like them. I could sit around and be resentful and angry and drink my little poison cup, or I could find ways to accept my partner, even in the yucky stuff that I don't like. And that has been so much more satisfying than sitting around drinking poison or trying to change him. Some of the things that are upsetting to me are like fundamental ways that he is, that aren't going to change no matter what I do or say. And learning to accept those things and not accept them like, oh, I'm getting hurt all the time. It's just like accept those things about him that I can't change and just acknowledge that he's a very different human being than I am. That's been really helpful. And that could be a piece of the puzzle for forgiveness and repair that people don't really think about as much.
I love that. I think I would want to close with asking people to, I know this kind of sounds a little hokey, but like, what would be the downside to asking our partners, is there anything that I need to be forgiven for? Or is there anything that's on your mind or your heart where you just don't feel like you could bring it up? Or is there anything that there needs to be some forgiveness for?
Wow. I'm thinking in my own relationship I think that would really open up. I'm sure there's something that Chris is holding on to. I would like to know that thing now. I think I will ask him. Yeah, I'll ask him. Is there anything?
And even if there's not.
Okay, give me those words again, Jimmy, because I'm going to be the partner that's going to be saying this. Is there anything between us that you're having trouble forgiving me for? Something like that.
Yeah, I love that. Okay. I love that. Yeah. Or is there anything that needs forgiveness? And even if there's not, that's still that question alone. Just think of how that question alone, asking it routinely in our relationships, opens up a door of just like love and curiosity to our partner, where they feel like this person really. Now, obviously, that should be paired with, if they bring something up, that's your cue that this is time to listen, and this is we're putting our validating hats on,
right?
And we're doing all the things that we talked about in the very beginning when somebody actually does say like, well, yeah, there's some things that are on my heart. But how lovely would that be if
That would be
both
so
people
great.
in a relationship
How
wanted to
my
do that?
partner would respond to that, though? I would go, is there anything that he would go, what did you do? He would probably think I was feeling guilty for something.
Yeah. Which is so normal. It's a very strange question. I get it. But at the same time, it's a very loving question as well. Just, it's because we should all be checking in with each other. Like, I think that's one of the fundamental things that like break down in relationships is we're not checking in together. Like, hey, how's it going? And we don't have to necessarily always say like the forgiveness questions, because that means that there's like lingering hurt and all this stuff. It can just be like, do you feel like I've hurt you in the last couple of weeks? Like, is there anything that I've done that has hurt you and you've not brought it up? That'd be an interesting question for somebody to, because I bet that they might be able to pull one thing like, well, I mean, yeah, there's been some things that you've done that have hurt me, but I don't want to bring up every single thing. I think it's so important in that moment to go like, talk to me about it. Like, I want to know the one thing that's on your mind right now that you're like, I don't want to rock the boat, or that wasn't that big of a deal. I think it's so loving to just be like, no, I care about that thing. Like, talk to me about that thing. Well, okay. I mean, I've loaded the dishwasher every night this week, and it just, and like, I get it. You're busy and like this stuff, but like, man, it just feels like I've felt like alone. I've just felt like neglect. Like, you don't care that it takes me longer. I'm in there kind of shutting the kitchen down, and sometimes I just feel a little hurt. Like, that is such an important thing that they were vulnerable in that moment and actually brought that up. And that process can lead to so much where you're just like, man, like, that totally makes sense. I get that. And then going through those little stages of like validation that we talk about all the time. So I think that it could really lead to, to like
And for those of you who are like more apprehensive about bringing stuff like that up, you can always use me and my partner's patented poo sandwich, right? Where what we do is we'll give each other a compliment. That's the piece of bread. We'll make a request for change. That's the poo in the middle that nobody wants to deal with. And then there'll be probably another compliment at the end. That's a great way that we feel very connected and appreciative, but also we slip in the thing that needs to be worked on too. And both partners create the sandwich, like I have my compliment for him, request for change, and another compliment. And so does he. And those sessions always feel great. I'm never upset about the thing that's brought up because I'm still flying high on the compliments. So that's a nice way that we get that done.
Yeah, I love that. That's pretty much it. Thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you, Rikki.
Yeah. Thank you, Jimmy. This is always so much fun.
Let us know in the comments if we missed anything on the what do you need to forgive each other. We're always learning as well. So
we'll throw some quotes and some books in the show notes, or I guess that would be the description on YouTube if that's where you're watching. Jimmy, everyone can find you. Where's the best place for them to find you if this is their first episode?
Oh gosh, anywhere. Probably
anywhere.
Instagram.
Instagram. That's probably the same with me. My handle is Anxious Hearts Guide on Instagram. Jimmy is Jimmy on Relationships. If you guys want more of our stuff, also, I guess this is the thing to do. Please subscribe to the podcast if you enjoy listening, and you'll be notified when new episodes pop up.
Yeah, that'd be great. This has been so fun.
See you next time.